Picture this. The HOA queen bee stands in the middle of the sunny courtyard like she owns the oxygen itself, jabbing a manicured finger at my trembling 12-year-old daughter and snarling, "Strip her down right now, or I'm calling the cops. She's hiding spray paint." All because Sophie drew a few hopscotch squares with washable sidewalk chalk on the community walkway. Neighbors froze mid-step, kids stopped playing, and the only sound was Sophie's tiny voice whispering, "Daddy, I didn't do anything wrong." Oh, bless her heart. Deborah Harrington, president of Willow Creek Enclave's HOA, truly believed terrorizing children was peak community leadership. She'd spent years fining people for grass 1 millimeter too tall, banning American flags after July 5th, and once wrote a 3-page memo about unapproved emotional expressions on lawns. Today she'd decided chalk dust on a little girl's pockets was a felony. I, Marcus Hale, the guy everyone thought just mowed lawns and unclogged drains, stood 2 steps behind Sophie with my hands in my pockets. No yelling. No threats. Just watching Deborah's face turn that special shade of entitled purple while she waved her clipboard like it was a royal scepter. The other residents shifted uncomfortably, the same way they always did when Deborah went full dictator. Mrs. Lang next door suddenly found her flower bed fascinating. Mr. Patel pretended to check his phone. Nobody wanted to be next on the fine list. Deborah loved that fear. She fed on it like it was kale and oat milk. "Ma'am, this is ridiculous," I said quietly, voice steady as the summer heat. "It's washable chalk. It rains tomorrow and it's gone." Deborah spun on her heel, eyes glittering with the joy of fresh prey. "Mr. Hale, maintenance staff do not speak unless spoken to. Your daughter has defaced common property. The charter is crystal clear, zero tolerance for vandalism. Now empty her pockets, or I'll have Officer Ramirez here assist." She snapped her fingers at the young cop, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. He shifted his weight, clearly regretting answering the call. Sophie clutched her little plastic bucket of chalk tighter, colorful dust smudging her fingers. Tears welled, but she refused to let them fall in front of the crowd. "That's my girl." I crouched beside her, one hand on her shoulder, grounding her the way I always had since her mom left. "It's okay, Soph. Adults are just having a moment." Deborah laughed, that sharp, brittle sound people make when they're losing control but pretending they're winning. "A moment? This is enforcement. The HOA exists to maintain standards. If we let children run wild with art supplies, next thing you know someone will plant unauthorized tomatoes. Officer, please escort this child to the clubhouse for a proper inspection." The cop cleared his throat. "Ma'am, I can't. Strip search if necessary." Deborah interrupted, voice rising an octave. "She's concealing evidence. Look at the dust on her hands." Gasps rippled through the courtyard like someone had dropped a match in dry grass. A mom 2 doors down actually covered her kid's ears. Dark humor of the moment? Deborah genuinely thought demanding a 12-year-old strip in public was reasonable adult behavior. She'd weaponized standards so hard she'd forgotten what a normal human looked like. I felt the rage coil tight in my chest, but I swallowed it. Patience wasn't weakness. It was a loaded gun with the safety on. Officer Ramirez stepped forward, hand raised. "Nobody is stripping anyone. This is sidewalk chalk. Case closed." Deborah's face did that thing where it tried to explode, but settled for twitching. "Then I'll file a formal complaint. This man clearly can't control his child. Maybe Willow Creek isn't the right community for people like them." She said people like them the way some folks say cockroaches. The threat hung there, heavy and familiar. She'd used it before, on the single mom with the wind chimes, on the retired veteran who flew his flag too long. I stood up slowly, keeping my voice low so only Sophie and the cop could hear the steel underneath. "We're done here, officer. Thank you for your time." I took Sophie's hand, and we walked toward our townhouse like nothing had happened. Behind us, Deborah kept sputtering about hearings, fines, and appropriate disciplinary action. Her voice cracked like cheap drywall. Inside our little place, I shut the door on the circus. Sophie sank onto the couch, shoulders shaking now that the audience was gone. I sat beside her without crowding, just letting her lean into me when she was ready. "They all stared at me, Dad," she whispered. "Like I was a criminal." "I know, baby. And every single one of them is going to feel stupid real soon." I didn't tell her the rest. Not yet. How I'd spent the last 18 months quietly buying up the common areas, the roadways, sidewalks, easements, even the grass they all walked on, through a private trust nobody knew existed. Deborah thought she ruled the kingdom. She was standing on my land. And today's little performance had just lit the fuse. That night, while Sophie slept, I slipped out to the maintenance shed. The same battered toolbox everyone ignored sat in the corner. Inside, beneath the wrenches and duct tape, were the documents, deeds, surveys, transfer papers, all stamped and filed with the county weeks ago. I ran my thumb over the seal and smiled for the first time all day. Deborah had spent years treating me like the help. Tomorrow she'd learn the help owned the house. The next morning, the neighborhood grapevine was on fire. Whispers followed me like cheap cologne as I pushed my utility cart down the walkway. Mrs. Lang suddenly needed her sprinkler adjusted right when I passed. Mr. Patel asked about that unfortunate incident while pretending to deadhead roses. Even the teenagers at the bus stop gave me side-eye, like I'd grown a second head. Reputation leak. Phase 1. People were starting to wonder why the maintenance guy hadn't crumbled. Deborah, of course, doubled down. I spotted her marching toward the community office with 2 board members trailing like nervous ducklings, binder clutched to her chest like body armor. When she saw me adjusting a sprinkler head, she stopped dead, heels clicking like gunfire. Mr. Hale, she called loud enough for the whole block. The board meeting is Friday. We'll be discussing your daughter's misconduct and your uncooperative attitude. Make sure you're presentable. I didn't look up from the valve. Wouldn't miss it, Deborah. Her smirk faltered. She hated when I used her first name. Hated more when I stayed calm. You think silence makes you clever? It just makes you easy to remove. I finally met her eyes, steady, unblinking. We'll see. She walked away twice, glancing back like she expected me to sprout horns. Quiet people scare loud ones. They always have. By afternoon, the whispers had legs. Officer Ramirez returned for a routine patrol and somehow ended up chatting with residents near the mailboxes. I overheard him say, clear as day, the girl did nothing wrong. That call was excessive. The sentence spread faster than Deborah's fines ever had. Emotional truth always outruns fear. Sophie came home from school quieter than usual. She drew at the kitchen table, another hopscotch grid, but smaller, private. I made her favorite grilled cheese and didn't push. Healing doesn't rush. Later, Mrs. Lang knocked, wringing her hands. I'm so sorry about yesterday, Marcus. Deborah's been out of control for years. She fined me last month for planting purple petunias, said they disrupted the color palette. I offered her coffee. Things are going to change soon. She studied me like she was seeing me for the first time. You're different than she thinks, aren't you? I just smiled. Thursday night, the board meeting loomed like a storm cloud. Deborah sent a group email titled Urgent Disciplinary Action, all residents invited. Translation, come watch me destroy the maintenance guy. I spent the evening reviewing documents one last time. Not revenge. Correction. Public correction. Friday evening, the community hall was standing room only. People who never attended meetings suddenly cared deeply about standards. Deborah stood at the front, binder open like the Bible, hair sprayed into submission. We cannot allow individuals who undermine community safety to remain, she began, voice dripping honeyed venom. She painted Sophie as a vandal, me as an uncooperative father, and herself as the brave defender of property values. The room shifted uncomfortably. I sat in the second row, toolbox at my feet, calm as still water. When she finally said the magic words, "This man clearly cannot remain in our employ or our community," I stood. Slowly, deliberately. The room went dead silent. Are you finished? I asked, voice low but carrying to every corner. Gasps rippled. Deborah's mouth opened, closed, opened again like a fish yanked onto dry land. She recovered with a sneer. This isn't your platform, Mr. Hale. You answer to the board. Actually, I said, stepping forward just enough, the board answers to the property. I set the toolbox on the table with a soft metallic click that sounded louder than a gunshot. Every eye locked on it. Deborah laughed, nervous now. What is this, show and tell? You're going to fix our problems with a wrench. I opened the lid. Not wrenches. Thick manila envelopes. Certified copies. I laid the top deed down first. The one transferring ownership of every common area, roadway, sidewalk, and easement in Willow Creek Enclave to Hale Holdings Trust. My trust. The board chair leaned forward, glasses slipping. These are legitimate county stamps. Deborah's face drained of color. Impossible. The HOA owns the common areas. Owned, I corrected gently. Past tense. I bought them when the developer went bankrupt last year. Quietly. Legally. Every blade of grass you've been policing? Mine. Every rule you've enforced with fines and threats? Enforceable only with my permission now. Whispers exploded into full chaos. Someone actually applauded. Mrs. Lang stood up. She fined me for petunias on land that wasn't even hers. Deborah grabbed the deed like it might bite her. This is a trick. He's a maintenance worker. I was undercover, I said simply. Watching how you ran my property. Watching what you did to my daughter over chalk. I pulled out the folded note Sophie had given me years ago. For Dad, because you always fix things. I set it beside the deeds. This is why I stayed quiet. Not fear. Strategy. The room turned on Deborah like a tide. Stories poured out. The flag fines. The Christmas light inquisition. The time she tried to ban a kid's lemonade stand for unpermitted commerce. Each one landed like a hammer. Deborah shrank smaller with every confession, binder trembling in her hands. Officer Ramirez stood. Miss Harrington, given the misuse of emergency services and the incident with the minor, you'll need to come with me for a statement. She looked at me, eyes wild. You think you won? You're just the help. I met her gaze without blinking. I was never the help, Deborah. You just never bothered to look up. The vote was unanimous. Deborah Harrington removed as president effective immediately. The board asked me to serve as interim oversight until new elections. I accepted, not for power, but for peace. For Sophie. For every kid who just wanted to draw hopscotch without fear. Later that night, Sophie waited on our porch steps, blanket around her shoulders. Did you fix it, Dad? I sat beside her, pulling her close. Yeah, baby. I fixed it. She relaxed against me for the first time in days. Good. Now can we draw a really big hopscotch? I laughed softly. Biggest one yet. Whole street if you want. Because the street was ours now. And somewhere down the block, Deborah Harrington packed her binder and her pride into boxes, learning the hardest lesson of all: never humiliate a child on land you don't actually own. So tell me in the comments, was Marcus wrong for staying silent and buying the street in secret, or was Deborah the real villain for turning a kid's game into a public strip search nightmare? Who crossed the line first? Drop your thoughts below. I read every single one.